Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Could I have asked? No, actually, can I say thank you in the greatest and biggest way for having the gift? I'm already getting goosebumps. I haven't even introduced you to this world yet. To express to you the excitement and gratitude I have for going into 2017, that the person you're about to hear from and the guest today is somebody that far beyond my wildest imagination exudes and exemplifies the word that is such a big word that I talked about as my mantra for this year, that joy is a choice. Joy is a choice and living in gratitude. So world, can I introduce you to one of the most remarkable human beings I've ever met, and she's now become one of my dearest friends, to the beautiful Jenn Kaye. Hi, darling.
Hi, Holly.
Look at you. Hi. You truly are. Jenn, I could not be more thrilled and ecstatic to know that people are going to get to hear from you and your story as we dive into this new amazing year ahead of us. So thank you for making the time, because as I just want everybody to know that Jenn has fitting this in because she's getting ready to be boarding a flight within hours to head to St. Croix in the Virgin Islands. And you'll know more about that story here in a few minutes. But Jenn, okay, so I have to tell everybody, you have all these amazing things on your website, and I know you as this incredible master communicator. I know you as a coach, as a speaker, as a trainer, as a facilitator, as a friend, as a woman, as a human. I could go on and on. The gifts you bring, but I want you to share. Tell us a little bit about you, your passions, what you're doing. Tell us about your world right now.
First of all, I absolutely adore you and cannot think of a more delightful introduction that I've ever received. So thank you.
You're welcome. Record it and then play it over and over.
There you go. It's as we were chatting a bit before we started this call. It has been such an amazing end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And I think if I were to answer some of the things that I'm so passionate about and working on right now is bringing more voice, certainly to myself, but even offering more opportunities for people to connect to their own authentic voice. You know, we actually talk about authenticity, and yet I feel very strongly about us being in the wrong part of the conversation, meaning we talk about authenticity. What we don't really talk about is the risk we must be willing to take to be authentic.
Ooh, that was good. Isn't that the truth?
It really is. And so we say that we want it and we think that we are. And as I was sharing with you, I'm pretty authentic when I'm in person, when I'm training, when I'm facilitating, when I'm interacting with people. But there was a misalignment. My website and marketing materials were really much more about a persona that represented, who I was to the world and what I thought was this professional way. And yet it was because I was afraid of running the risk of how people might see me if I wasn't what I thought they thought I should be. Did that make sense coming out of my mouth?
Totally. And I'm literally smiling going, it's the old, yes, what we think that people want us to look like. So we're putting out there what we think we should be for them to think that we are. Right? I just made it even more convoluted. Exactly. So let it go, right? Just let all that crap go. Just be real.
Oh my gosh, be real. And yet recognize that we're going to run a risk for being real. So in that, I'm equally as passionate about finding the ways to help people find the courage to be themselves, to be real. And because it takes courage. You've got to be willing to know what you're willing to risk. and find your own courage inside of that. So I'm really passionate right now about exploring those elements of what's missing, how I can be of service, and offering that through my trainings and workshops and online programs. Holly, I'm going to be launching my first online program this year. And
I know. I'm so excited for you. Oh,
yeah.
I just love that. Yeah. Well, you know, what I'd love for people to know too is, and this is the part that, you know, every time I get to be around you and I learn something more, I'm like, you what? You have that too? You do that too? But like, just tell us, like, I know you've got like how many degrees and how many languages do you speak? I mean, you've got multiple languages. So just brag for a second, because this is what makes you the communication expert in the world.
This is your favorite part.
I know it is. Here we go. You're going to do it, aren't you?
I will. I absolutely will. So I always had a fascination with languages and at least a little bit of context. And I think I've shared this with you. My mom was one of 10 kids from New York. And my father was one of 2 from the Midwest, 2 very different languages. And so mom's family spoke with big hand gestures and loud voices and interrupting each other. And dad's side of the family was very quiet. They spoke much more slowly. They waited for someone to finish talking before they began. And so as a child, I would watch my mom and dad, and my mom would get really excited and be saying something to him. And he would go, "Whoa, Diana, you don't have to get so upset." And she would just look at him and, of course, throw her arms up in this grand gesture and say, "Upset? What are you talking about? I'm just communicating." Right? I grew up in Kansas City, so I didn't realize what an impact that made on me. And so I had started studying languages in junior high and high school. But it was really when I went off to college. So I majored in Japanese. I minored in Russian. I do speak some Spanish, some French, and a little Greek or Portuguese on a good day. I also speak dog, cat, and the occasional horse. I speak eldest child, which is different than middle or youngest child for those of you that might have multiple siblings, which means I'm fluent in big sister and am fluent in the art of interrupting and always thinking I know what's best for others. Very irritating to the rest of the population. I clearly speak fluent female. I speak the occasional male, also a different language. I speak dance mostly in the dialects of Argentine tango and salsa. I speak some Xbox 360 and some Sig Sauer 380.
I just love it. And it's true. All of that and above. And then you wonder why she gets the right to say Master Communicator globally. Oh, Jenn. And it's fascinating. And you take all of that and you make yourself so human and real when you walk into a room. Because you've helped me understand that communication, you said it so beautifully somewhere, communication is the connective tissue in everything. And I love that line. Love that.
It is. When we think about it, it's everything. Whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's leadership, management, I already said marketing, networking, anything, family, communication is everything. And yet there's a difference between language and communication. It's not all one thing. And so it's this connective tissue in everything, but we're never really taught how to recognize it, right? How to be aware of it. And it's what makes the difference in everything we do and what we tell ourselves and what we think about ourselves, those internal conversations every single day. So, and it affects our nervous system. It affects our physiology. It's powerful. And people don't wake up in the morning. And I do say this for anyone who's listening as a reminder, I did share the languages I speak for the reason that what I've found in over 30 years of experiencing this is that people do not wake up in the morning, frankly, wondering how to piss you off today.
That's awesome.
Right? They have their own language and their own way of looking at the world and their own way of processing, and everybody's just trying to get their own needs met. So when you think about it, it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube, or if we look at connective tissue or the fascia of body as my background in wellness, it connects everything. So we don't actually have a separate hamstring to a quadricep. They're all sort of connected within our fascia. And if we have a strain in one area, it pulls on another area. So when we learn what language we're speaking and learn how, first and foremost for ourselves, and then learn how to appreciate where other people are coming from and what language they're speaking, then it just becomes a matter of translation and not taking it personally. It's a lot easier to sort of neutralize it and not react emotionally when you go, oh, okay, they're just speaking bottom line, or they're speaking details, or wow, they're speaking, I need more,
totally.
So
yeah. And what's so interesting about that is that communication can make or break every relationship, any relationship and every relationship. And yet I don't know that it's always the first thing that people start talking about when they go to, marriage therapy or something, to go to see a counselor. It's the communication, right? And yet we don't give it enough. It's not a priority. And yet that's what I love about you, is that you're helping, your passion in life is to make it a priority. And here's the fascinating thing about Jenn that I want everyone to know, is that you can tell by her energy just coming through the phone, her passion for life, her passion for people, for everything that you do and bring. But this hasn't been you haven't had this easy life of it being handed to you on a silver platter. And what I think is so amazing to me, Jenn, is you had an life altering, you almost lost your life, pivotal moment in your life. Can you tell us about that? Because that really transformed who you are, and a lot about why I love the spirit that you bring this world.
Sure. Actually, it's just, we just marked the, 13-year anniversary of my head-on collision. And what's so interesting is, prior to my head-on collision, I had a wellness practice, and it was thriving. I was booked weeks and weeks in advance. I was growing. I was creating and delivering workshops and programs that were transformative. It was beautiful and blissful. And one day I just sort of lifted my hands up and I said, "Dear God, please show me how to help more people." And 6 weeks later, I was in this head-on collision. And my first thought was, dude, that's so not what I was thinking.
Yeah, dude.
Whatever your belief in spirit and source and the divine is, right? It was kind of like that. Not quite what I had in mind. I really had something else. And I remember when I was in the MRI, that thinking, it was one of those moments where I'm strapped to a board, I'm hooked to a tube. There's so many stories inside of my head-on collision of what happened. And I in retrospect, I knew I was so protected inside of it. And it was when I was in the MRI where I was strapped to this board and I had no idea what was going on. It was a moment where I simply asked, okay, what is this about? And, I don't know if it's just my internal voice and I'm crazy, which is entirely possible, or if it was a voice of something greater than me. And that voice simply said, relax, this is bigger than you.
And you were then told you would never walk again.
I did. So what happened is I had shattered my right tibia, multiple breaks and sprains to my left foot and ankle. They had to wait for the inflammation in my left foot to go down, which took about a week before they could even do the second surgery. When they had wanted to do surgery on my right leg that very next day, I of course asked if there was any other options, because all I could think about was, wait a minute, that's going to mess with my dancing. Is there another?
Mess with my dancing. That's all you're thinking about.
That's all I'm thinking about. And he said, if we don't operate immediately, you might lose the leg. So it was pretty severe. And then the swelling in the left foot had to go down before they could do the second operation. I fractured my C4 neck vertebrae and cracked a bunch of ribs in the process. I was in a wheelchair for 10 weeks and what had happened is the doctor, after doing the second surgery on the foot, he came back and said, you need to know you will very likely never return to your previous level of activity and recover, and you will never dance again. And you know, when you have a moment of sheer willfulness, certainty, I simply looked at him, and without even blinking an eye, I said, thanks for sharing what you needed to for your reasons of liability. Now let me say something to you. That is not an option. So if we're going to be on the same team, and if you're going to continue to help me recover, I'm going to need you to be on board with me. And with that, will that work for you?
And what was his face? What did he say?
He was a little stunned. He was younger at the time, so there was a little bit of that doctor arrogance that sometimes they can have. And he said, well, I hadn't really thought about it like that. And I said, you know, your words are so powerful. I said, there are people that believe everything that you tell them. And if you tell them that they won't be able to, they will simply take that. Now, I'm quite stubborn, and I can't promise that we're always going to agree and get along. And this is what I'm going to ask for you to consider and keep in mind in our future conversations. And he looked at me, and I'm sure it took everything in him at the time. He said, you know, I really never thought about it like that.
Ooh. You changed probably the rest of the trajectory of his business as a doctor.
I hope so.
And I could just see you sitting there in your wheelchair saying it just like that too, with that finger swinging. And let me just tell you one more thing, Dr. Sir.
Well, you know it, sister. Let me explain something to you, honey.
Oh. And then how long was it before you were, so tell me, because I don't even know the answer to this question. How long was it before you started dancing again?
Wow. It was, so let's see, I was in a wheelchair for 10 weeks, started to learn to walk again. Oh, I know what it was. Well, so a couple funny things happened. When I had my cast on, I have friends who were very supportive in the salsa community, and they made me come out a couple times. And there I am in my cast, and at least getting my little wiggle on. But it was, I think, here's when it really shifted. When I started dancing, and there's two answers to your question. The first was I had taken myself to Playa del Carmen, which I used to visit when I was working on the cruise ships, and it wasn't the thriving city it is now. And I met a local who invited me to go out dancing, and I went, and that was really the first time I had tried that. The second was I had told myself that I will know that I had recovered when I actually can dance on stage again. I used to perform and do competitive amateur ballroom. And what's so funny is I had the privilege of meeting Tito Puente Jr. So Tito Puente, Santana made one of his songs.
Yes.
Okay.
Totally. Yep.
Oye, ¿cómo va?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. One of his other, and so that Tito Puente was an amazing musician and composer. And so one of his others was Ran Can Can, one of my favorite all-time songs, and it's fast. So I had the privilege to meet his son, who was doing a tour at a private dinner, and I shared with him the story of his father's song and how meaningful it was to me, and the collision and all of that. And he said, well, why don't you come to the concert tomorrow night and come dance on stage with your partner? And so sure enough, I mean, I'm in the, front row. It's an outdoor concert in Scottsdale, very intimate. And they started playing the song, and he saw me down on the floor, and he said, come on up. I think you might have had to peel me off of the sky and it didn't even hit me, mind you, until about a month later that I had actually danced on stage. And what I had done was actually acknowledge that I had healed. Oh. But I didn't realize it in the moment.
What a glorious recovery. What a glorious and miraculous way to let go of the pain and recover. So determined to get back to what you love.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that story. Now I have another question, and I've never asked this as long as I've known you. Did you ever meet the person that had the head-on collision with you?
Ooh, no, I did not. And here's what happened, because there was a moment when I was extraordinarily angry.
Yeah.
You'll never hear me say I was in a car accident or that I was hit by a drunk driver, which he was. But it was a little while after, and the anger really hit me afterwards. And I said, this just isn't okay. So I hired a private detective to find him. And the detective basically came back and said, Jenn, I don't know how to tell you this. And this was about maybe 2 years after the collision, not all that long. I was still recovering. And he said he died from a heart attack. And I thought, for all of those moments, I'd love to tell you that I am so angelic and I trust God to take care of everything. I don't. I can be vindictive and vengeful. And, part of me thought, how could he have gotten away with this? And so when he came back and he told me that, I took a step back and I said, let this be a reminder that not everything is on my time. And who knows what the gentleman who hit me was going through or what was happening. And that was the path. So I know his name and I have a photo. We never met.
Well, and I've never asked that question. And isn't that amazing how, and you're human. We're all human. And I find some people seek out to make restitution, or whether it's anger, just to know, whatever that is, just the vengeful, like you said. But well, how beautiful is that, though, that you finally did seek out, and that person's life had a course of their own. Yeah. So it's, you know what, love? Thank you. This to me, and this is what I want people to know, when you're with Jenn, you see, you'd never know what she's been through. You'd never know all that's happened to her. I mean, everything was disfigured, everything about you. And yet you could have grown to be a hateful, vengeful, really angry human being, because that's what you see a lot happen when people get faced with adversity. And you continue to show me that life is such a gift. We have a choice. I said, joy is a choice every day. You, to me, exemplify that. And I'm not saying any of us are angels or perfect, and Lord knows I'm not. Yet I choose, that saying, choose very carefully the people that you choose to be around, because they can lift you up or they can pull you down. And you are one of those top 5 people that when I think about who do I want to be around, it's Jenn. It's Jenn Kaye. And you hold no harbor, no anger. And I love that about you. And I just hope I hope you know what a gift you are to this world, my friend. And as we're wrapping this up, I would love to ask you a question that you had no idea I was going to ask this either. So if you were to go back and give your 22, 25-year-old self advice, what would that advice be based on who you are today?
Wow. That's a really powerful question. I think that's a question we really all can stop and think about, right? Mm-hmm. I think, interesting. So here's what comes up. And no, I didn't know you were going to ask this. And there's so many different answers. I think, how can you wrap that up into 1 or 2 sentences? And I think one of the things most importantly that I would tell my younger self is, you are enough. Mm. You have nothing to prove. Whatever you do, because I have a terrible tendency to overthink things, by the way.
No, not you. Not you and me. Together, it's even worse. Okay, keep going.
It really would be. You are enough. Do what makes your heart sing. Be willing to let the people go who cannot see for themselves that they are enough, and you don't have to bring everybody with you. They have to choose their own joy.
That's powerful. Ooh. I love that.
Sometimes I've recognized that in the desire of wanting people to experience joy, wanting them to experience their most brilliant self. I have fallen in love with more than one man's potential. I have stayed in unhealthy partnerships, business partnerships, far too long, thinking that I'm strong enough to carry everybody. And so I would stay in there for way longer than was beneficial to me. And I love what you said, Holly, in that joy is a choice and we can choose it. we have to let others choose their own joy. And it's not our responsibility or our job. We can shine the light. We can model it. We can share experiences. And at the end of the day, they have to make their own choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? The way you just said that, I think everyone could be using that as a reminder going into this year. Because Jenn, I've been down those paths myself over and over and over. And we have to realize that we don't need two things. And you just really anchored them. We don't need to wait for the world to give us permission to find who we are and love who we are and find joy. I feel like sometimes we just wait for everyone to give us permission, or we're seeking permission, and you don't need it. You have the permission. You are enough, just like you said. And I think, going into 2017, and I just shared this last week on a podcast, is please, please, please think about one thing that's ridiculously fun that you'd love to make a part of your life. And what's one thing that's really toxic that you can get rid of? And as I think about that, and that's why I couldn't have asked for a more beautiful gift than you to be on this show with me. What is something that you're going to do? What is one ritual or commitment or intention you've put into place for yourself to make your life better, Jenn, to make it extraordinary this year?
Oh, that's exciting. The intention that I've set is twofold. One is to keep it simple. And the second is to just act. And so my word for the year is allowing. And the keep it simple is to help me not overthink things, as we chatted about a moment ago. And the just act is again, sort of not overthinking. And it's about taking heartfelt, joy-filled action of what are those places that energize me, without thinking, okay, how is it going to be monetized? What's the funnel? What's the lead generation? Who's my distribution? It's like just act. And in the acting from the space of pure joy, let it unfold. That's what editing is for. Version 1.0, 1.1, 1.6,
yeah.
Version 2.0. Like we're all half baked. And the moment we get it perfect, we're done. And we're up on a cloud looking down going, oh, wow, I didn't have to make it so hard. So that's really my intention, is to keep it simple and to just act.
And a great visual for that is just lace up the shoes and get moving.
Yeah.
Right? Just
get out of the house.
Yeah. And the house can be our head. Yeah. So metaphorically speaking, for many people, as you just heard that line, think sometimes the house is our own head, and that's the worst place. We got to get out of it. And that's what I love, the simplicity of this. And what a great way to think about starting your year. So, Jenn, will you share with everybody, if people want to learn more about you, if they want to get in touch with you, for whatever reason, to ask you questions or learn about your coaching and your speaking, whatever that is, how best can they reach out to you?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Holly. Right now, in full transparency, I'm in the process of reworking my website. So, that wouldn't be my first choice. And because I know you and your community, I'm going to share my email address. If anyone wants to reach out, ask questions, you may reach me personally. This is my personal and private email. It's Jenn, JENN, at JennKaye.com.
And that's Kaye, just so people know. Yep.
Yes. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and they're welcome to reach out to me there as well. And if you'd like to have a conversation, if you'd like to connect personally, if any of those, you may reach out to me privately.
Oh, I love that. And people get permission to do that. And that's what's most important. And as we sign off, and I get to say thank you one more time to you, I want to thank you because Jenn was also one a dream of mine that I'd had for almost a decade, which a lot of people don't know that, but that was to host and have my very first women's elite retreat. And I trusted God the whole way. And Jenn, you were such a gift. You were there with bells on your toes. And I just want to thank you for being such an amazing friend, such an amazing colleague, such a brilliant human being in this world, and have an amazing trip. May all the people that get to benefit from all of your exceptional leadership skills, your coaching, everything you're going to do down back in the Virgin Islands. And oh, by the way, can I tell everybody, when Jenn and I met, wait, I have to say this before we hang up. When Jenn and I first met several years ago, we did not know that we had so many common roots. We found out that we grew up within almost 15 minutes of each other, went to the same school district, 2 different high schools in the same district, both went on to work on cruise ships. And then I ended up living on St. John and she was on St. Croix, where you're going back here in the next 24 hours. So I just have to say, isn't life amazing? There's no coincidence. It's a God incident, right?
It's a God incident. I love that.
I love you. Thank you, darling.
I love you madly.
Oh, have a great trip. Bye. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.